All right, today I have got a action-packed, tasty, scriptural, scientific video for y'all. So y'all are gonna need to buckle up, sit back, grab you some popcorn and something tasty to drink. We're gonna talk about some deeply disturbing and intense biblical truths that tie into the science of humanity. So, some words I want you to write down. The word telegeny. Write down telegeny. Write down the word epigenetics. Write down the word quantum entanglement. Okay, those are the 3 words of the day, and they're all going to kind of tie in together. But what I'm about to explain to you is so mind-boggling that it'll make your past ancestors turn in their grave. So let's get into it. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there. We're just going to get it on the table. It's the meat and potatoes. Every woman that sleeps with a man and they don't use a condom, and he releases his goods inside of her, she retains the DNA of every man she's ever slept with. A woman will retain the DNA of every man she's ever slept with without protection. If his semen makes it inside of her, her body absorbs it through the vaginal walls into her bloodstream, and her body takes an accounting of this. Her brain stores the DNA of every man she's ever slept with. Okay? They've done autopsies on women who've never had children, so can't say it's because of children or because of having a male child, which some would say. But this is something that actually happens regardless of whether or not a woman has had a child. When they do autopsies on women, they found male DNA stored in her brain. Now, it's interesting that she stores the DNA of every man that she slept with. Now, let's look at purity in Scripture. Why is purity such a constant theme in Scripture that women were to be kept pure? In fact, if you were a man and you took a woman's virginity, she was your wife. You purchased that. She's your wife. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that the Scripture says that if you were to take a woman's virginity, she was now yours? And not only that, but look at Scripture, what it says about the purity, that if a man marries a woman and he finds out later that she was not pure, if he gets with her and finds out that she was not pure, then he could, in essence, divorce her and send her back to her dad's house because she was a fornicator. Okay, there's a reason why sexual purity was so important in Scripture, and it's going to get even more fascinating than this when I tell you what that DNA does, and that's called quantum entanglement. They've done studies on DNA. So let's say they take some of your DNA and they take it to China. And the only reason I say China is because it's far away. I don't have anything against the Chinese. They make great products. I'm being silly, just so you don't throw rocks at your screen. If they take some of your DNA and they take it to China or Russia, or if you're a big fan of Israel, they take your DNA to Israel. What they found is that when you are mentally or emotionally, when something happens to you, your DNA reacts to simultaneously, instantaneously. Your DNA reacts to what's happening to you here in the United States. So, if your DNA is in China and you go buy a new iPhone for $2,000 and you drop it and break it and you have an emotional meltdown, your DNA in China is having a meltdown with you. Okay? You tracking with me here? I bet you know where I'm going with this. So, this quantum entanglement ordeal, let's go back to woman storing the DNA of every man she's ever slept with in her head. So, let's just say you're married to a woman who's bodied 50 guys before she met you. She'd had sex with 50 guys. I know it's kind of high, but in today's world, it's really not all that inconceivable to think that that's a possibility. She had fun in her teens and 20s, maybe early 30s, settled down. She's running around with 50 different dudes' DNA all up here hanging out in her brain. It's like you want to talk about a tossed salad of emotions, thoughts, emotions, mental stuff. So all these dudes' DNA is hanging out in your wife's head, and one of them stubs their toe, gets in a nasty car accident, gets caught cheating by his wife, has a brother that dies. Their way of thinking, the way they process information, all of this stuff goes into your woman's head. So she's got a tossed salad of emotions and thoughts on a regular. And in the Western world, women are, by and large, the largest consumer of antidepressant drugs, antipsychotic drugs, the highest. I mean, women in the Western world have a lot of mental issues, have got a lot of mental issues, bipolar, multiple personality disorder, and on the spectrum of narcissism. I mean, you just go down the shopping list of craziness, and Western women have got their baskets full, okay? So, this is going to get even, I mean, it's already fascinating. I'm sure your mind is smoking from just how awesome this stuff is, but it's going to get better, I promise you. Because I'm going to tie it in to some things scripturally. So, not only is she running around, she's nuttier than a squirrel turd at times, and you're like, man, where did this come from? Well, it comes to find out, Chad, Pookie, and Tyrone maybe we're having some issues in their life, and your wife's picking up on the signals, right? Okay, well, it gets better. So you decide to have children with your wife. Now she's settled down. She no longer likes to sleep around, and she's ready to settle down. She had her fun, right? So you guys decide you're going to start popping babies out. You're going to start racking and stacking them, right? You got babies popping out. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Maybe you're really crazy and you get up into the double digits. But here's the thing. Not only does that DNA that's stored in her brain, not only does Chad, Pookie, and Tyrone, are they sending wireless signals to your wife simultaneously through their DNA, but she sheds that genetic material in her offspring. That's right. That means when you have your children, Chad, Pookie, Tyrone, and the whole carousel, that genetic material can be shedding into your children. Traits that they have. Height. In fact, there were studies done that, now this has not been transferred to human studies yet, or actually I take that back, it has, but they have not released the data on this. But from a guy that I was watching who is a neuroscientist, was explaining that the woman who had her first sexual experience with a man without a condom, that DNA goes in and it affects the height of her future children. So let's say your wife's first guy she slept with was a shorty. He was 5'6", 5'8". You know, he's a short guy. If you're 5'6" or 5'8", there's no condemnation here. I'm 6'2", and I'm just trying to rub it in a little bit. But she sleeps with a guy who's, let's just say, 5'6". Let's say, and then she marries you, and you're 6'8", and your children turn out to be shorties. And you're like, oh, what's going on here? I was robbed. Well, you can thank the guy that she lost her virginity to, or the first guy that expressed himself inside of her. You can thank him for your short children, because that's where this is going. And science is about to blow up with this. In the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to begin to see this stuff come into the mainstream. They do not like it. It flies in the face of feminism. They do not want this information out. And you can imagine why, because the consequences for men and women's actions are completely different. Women retain the DNA, they pass it on through shedding. So if your wife has a child that has certain traits, and you're like, and I've had friends like this, both parents, brown hair, brown eyes, tan, and out comes a child that's got the fiery red hair, pale, and freckles, and you're like, what? Where did this come from? So, here's the thing. This quantum entanglement theory is interesting, because remember in the scripture where Paul talks about, I believe it's in Romans, maybe it's 1 Corinthians, I don't know, where he says that the woman is bound to her husband as long as he's alive, but when he dies, she's free to move on. Okay? Now think about this. Let's say your wife has slept with one other man other than you, and he expressed himself inside of her. Technically, she's bound to that man. Why is she bound to that man? Because of what's in here. So why does Paul say that she's bound to that man as long as he lives? Because again, if your DNA is in China and you're in the United States and you take a dirt nap, your DNA reacts to that life force that is in you ceases to exist in your DNA there when it is no more here, it's no more there. Okay? That's quantum entanglement. So think about this. Scripture says that she's free once he dies. So once the guy that's put some information up here in her brain, once he passes, now she's free to move on and take on some more information, because that DNA, gone. But let's get more into this. So in Romans, I think it's 5:12, it says that through one human, sin entered the world. Through one human, sin entered the world. Okay? Now, I'm probably going to really make some of you angry, but it's okay. In this channel, we should be okay with looking at things and discussing things that are taboo, okay? So we're going to crack into the serpent seed theory. And if you don't know what this is, it's basically the theory that Satan, the serpent, slept with Eve in the garden, and she was impregnated with Cain by the serpent, and then Abel was Adam's. Now, if you go and read in the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, chapter 4 of Genesis, verses 1 and 2, it tells you that Eve bore twins, one from the serpent and one from Adam. Now, this is called heteropaternal super something or other twins. And this still happens today, where people in certain areas of the world can have twins by two different men. Okay, and I think it's primarily in Africa where this happens. So let's look at this. Let's assume that everything that I've already told you is 100% true. Let's go back to the garden, and the serpent expresses himself in Eve. She takes on the serpent's DNA. Now, I think we all know who the serpent is, and he's not dead yet. No, he's still running around somewhere. And which means that humanity has got a problem, a sin problem. They have a problem that they've been infected with this issue, which means we have to overcome that sin nature. Where did that sin nature come from? Now, Jesus explicitly talked to certain people and said, "You're of your father, the devil." And some people think, it's because they're related to the Nephilim. Sure, maybe. Okay? But if you have not overcome Satan, if you have not overcome the adversary, then you are still his child, and he is still your daddy. Okay? That's where this is going. That we might be carrying shedded genetics from our first mother that has been passed down from generation to generation. In other words, sin came in, and it's been here ever since. The only way to overcome it is to take on Christ likeness and consciousness in the sense that you take on his spirit. Is the only way to overcome it. So this is fascinating. We live in a world where women are encouraged to have lots and lots of they're encouraged to hook up, and then someday you can settle down, but girl, you enjoy yourself in your younger years. And society is not caught up with the repercussions of this yet. society is still living in the dream world that women and men have the same consequences, that men and women can do whatever they want, and the consequence is the same for women as it is for men. It's just not true. Men and women are built completely different. Woman is a receiver. She is meant, if you've seen my other videos, the word for woman and the word for man tells you what their function is. A woman's purpose is to take on her husband's essence and likeness. That proves, this theory proves that is true. Because the woman, it helps assimilation. For the woman, it helps her assimilate to her husband, to have sex or to have intercourse with her husband, because she can take on the seed of her husband, and it helps her to become one with him. And then that DNA helps her to reflect her husband. In other words, she becomes like her husband. Just as it's man's job to become like his head, to become like Christ, that spirit that goes into man is the spirit of Christ, and it's to aid him. That seed that is in a man is to aid him in becoming more like Christ, which Christ is like the Father, and so brings us along. And in the same way, the seed of a man is to bring his woman along to becoming like him, to take on his essence and likeness. It's a part of the program. God designed us in a way that physically and spiritually, as above, so below, as within, so without, He designed us in such a way that the physical and the spiritual are married to one another. So when a woman takes on her husband's seed physically, she becomes like her husband. Now, interestingly enough, marriages today are more sexless than they've ever been in the modern times. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers were having way more sex than we are today. Not me, because I'm not going to group myself in that. My life is great. No problems there whatsoever. But the vast majority of the men that I coach and talk to on a regular basis are not having very much sex in their marriage. Now, here is a fascinating thing, and I've talked about this, is that women can only be physically attracted to and emotionally attracted to a man who is dominant, a man who cannot be manipulated by her, a man who cannot be walked all over. Okay, but let's look at this. The woman naturally rejects the man who is not a strong leader. She doesn't want his seed inside of her. It's like she naturally is repelled. Something in her is saying, I don't want to take on this guy's personality. I don't want to take on his likes and dislikes. I don't want to take on his emotional. Like, she might be thinking, I'm already an emotional mess. I don't want to take on this guy's emotional mess. So if the men are in the same place as the women, if they're an emotional mess and whatnot, the woman's like, I don't want any more of that. But here's the thing. When a man is a top-notch dude, when he's a top G, when he's a man's man, he's stoic. He's not emotional. He's a rock. He doesn't get moved when her moods come in like a hurricane. He's like that rock that just doesn't move. Okay? Now, women want that inside them. They want that stability, that strength, that stoicism. They want that kind of comfort. They want that kind of comfort inside of them. Now, they're not thinking this consciously. They're not saying, oh yeah, I'd really love to have that inside me. No, they're not saying that. But on a biological wiring, on the inside, that biological wiring inside of them is saying, yeah, I need some of that. I need what he's got. Stability, strength, endurance, like all the things that make you a top G or a high value guy. She wants that inside her. Women are naturally consumers. When they love something, they consume it so much that they literally open their legs to it and pull it in. They consume their bodies, the vagina, it consumes. Okay? So, in today's world, we see marriages where men are not having sex and women are not having sex in marriages. And it's because of the repulsed nature. And so we see couples not becoming one. We see women who become one with 50 different guys. We see that those 50 different guys are being passed on genetically. Basically, 80% of men are not even attracted to women, so the same 20% of dudes are sharing a lot of the women. Look at the mess we are in. The children that we are birthing today have got so much genetic shedding going on. Is it any wonder that cancer, and I'm not dismissing the red dye 40 and all that stuff, and high fructose corn syrup, sure, vaccines or whatever it is that you've studied and you believe contribute to cancers and all this stuff today. But why is nobody looking at the fact that the genetic pool, all right, like if you're going to go swimming, you want to swim in a nice clean pool, right? You don't want to go swimming in a pool that 60 different dudes have wee-weed in or express themselves in. Who wants to swim in that pool? And in the same sense, who wants to make children with 50 different dudes toss salad of a genetic salad of nastiness? Who wants that? But that's what's happening today. We've got all these different genetics. Let's just say one woman is 50 people, and then another woman is 50 people, and another woman is 50 people. They're all popping out babies. And then those babies marry each other. It's no wonder that genetically we are a mess. We are a hot mess. We are a dumpster fire of genetics. So is it the clothing? Is it the food? Is it the water? Is it the sky? Yes. Is it the way that you think? Yes, all of it. Go look up and see who predominantly gets Alzheimer's and dementia. Go look that up. I'm not going to give it to you, but go look it up. Men or women, who do you think gets it more? All I'm saying is, Scripture seems to confirm what I'm finding. Women, who you sleep with matters. Your purity matters. Because all the men you sleep with, you're passing them on to your children. You're passing on all those one-night stands and everything else, and who only knows what kind of genetics those dudes got. Maybe they have a gene that predisposes them to certain cancers. And then you sleep with another guy that's predisposed to certain cancers. And another dude. And then you pop out babies, and they're supercharged. Those babies are supercharged for cancer. Look at the decline in the amount of disease and disability we have since the sexual revolution. And tell me there's not some correlation there, and it's only getting worse. I think it's 1 in like 30 boys born now has autism. 1 in 30. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. What is going on? And I'm telling you, it's not just the food. And it's not just the television. And it's not just the pancakes and the syrup and the high fructose. It's none of it. It's part of the problem. But the genetics too. We are being poisoned at every level, and women are out there sleeping around with a bunch of dudes because dudes can't they live for passion and pleasure, and they're living to get their rocks off instead of living for God, having a purpose, a higher value. They don't even know their purpose in life other than randomly releasing and expressing themselves in different women. This is a man problem. It's not a woman problem, because if the men straightened up, the women will straighten up. They won't have a choice, because there aren't going to be guys out there doing this. But this is profound. This is absolutely profound. And if you got to wait for 50 dudes to die before you can have children with your wife, that's a problem. And the thing is there just isn't that many virgins out there. I guard my daughters. My daughters are not allowed to be outside of my or my wife's sight. They have to be with us. There's no sleepovers. There's no nothing. Because my daughters are not going to be contaminated. And they're homeschooled. And they're not going to be contaminated on my watch. My daughters are staying at home until they get married. If they don't get married till they're 40, then they're going to live with me until they're 40. That's how it's going to work. But we got to clean the genetic pool up. And all you got to do is look on YouTube, watch your TV, go to the movies. All you got to do, and read the news. Read the news. My gosh, if you read the news, it confirms what I'm telling you. People are getting stupider. People are getting more dumb by the day. People are genetically becoming more, we're getting fat, dumb, lazy, full of cancers and all kinds of other stuff. And I have no doubt it's from semen concoctions that are being injected into women by all these different dudes. The quantum entanglement. Women are running around with conflicting thoughts all the time. If you're married to a single mom, a girl who was a single mom who been through the ringer, you know what I've counseled you. I know you know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying, do not hear me say, I'm not saying that this cannot be overcome. I believe it can. I believe just like us, Israel played the harlot. She did things, she was still redeemable, okay? I'm not saying that all hope is lost. What I am telling you, though, is we shouldn't be trying to make an environment for this, we shouldn't be making it any harder than it already is. Look, we have to overcome the enemy. That's a lot. And then you got to compete with Chad, Pookie, and Tyrone. That's a lot. A good man can do this. A good man can take a woman who has been a harlot, and he can do amazing things with her. I know, because I've seen it done. But I'm telling you, we've got to change things. We have got to change things. And it starts with us as men. Look, my seed is worth a lot to me. And I don't go around shooting my seed everywhere. I don't go around doing that. My wife gets my seed. I don't go around giving it to everybody. In fact, it should be so hard for a woman to ever entice you to sleep with her, because you know that your seed is worth so much that you would never give it away so cheaply. I'm talking about single men. Like, even if I was single right now, I would not be out sleeping with a bunch of different women because my seed is too valuable. I am a grade A plus man. I'm not going to go giving my stuff away for free. And I'm not just giving it away for free, but giving it away so frivolously. That's for the woman that I'm with, so that she can be one with me, so she can be one in mind with me. My wife all the time will be driving and I'll be thinking about something, or I'll be at home and thinking about something that I want, whether it's food, whether it's a drink, whether it's whatever it is, and my wife can read my mind. I am not kidding you. I don't know how many conversations we've had where I've thought about something and immediately, simultaneously, she's sitting in the seat next to me and she's like, we should do this. And I'm like, that is so bizarre. Like, I was just thinking that. There's a reason that you have semen, and it's for your wife's good. It's proven that it helps with it's an antidepressant, does all these things, assuming that you're using this with your wife and not spreading it everywhere. But semen has a very specific purpose to it. And when you fill your wife with you, when you are washing her, think about that scripture. It talks about washing your wife in the water by the word. Okay? That word water there, go look it up. Water, semen, urine, okay? When you sleep with your wife repetitively, you are putting more and more and more and more DNA inside of her. Which means the receptacle of reception from your thinking, from your verbalization, from you teaching her, correcting her, instructing her, reproving her, all those things, your thoughts, your emotions, all those things go into her. And she becomes like you, to where she even knows your thoughts, your desires, your wishes, and then seeks to meet those things. And then she reveals you to the world. If you watch my other videos talking about the wife as a crown to her husband's head, you know a king by his crown. You know a king. If you want to know who a king is, look at a man's wife. See what kind of woman she is. If she's an amazing woman, that's an amazing man, because it takes an amazing man to make an amazing woman. But if your marriage isn't so good that you can have sex with your wife whenever you want, you're never going to be able to reach this. You're never going to be able to reach this level of understanding. You're never going to be able to reach this level of oneness, because it does require you putting your seed in your wife. It does require that. You need to be filling her regularly. She needs to be receiving you regularly. Think about this. What if you got a relationship with God, but you never study the Word? You never go to the seed to receive more seed. How can you be washed in the Word? How can you become like God if you don't know who God's character is, if you don't know it? And like the potter, think about this, the potter and the clay, right? The potter, you think about on a wheel, when you're throwing clay on a wheel and you're making a vessel, you put one hand inside the vessel and one hand outside the vessel, and you lift it up, right? Okay, takes inside pressure, takes outside pressure, and the two together forms the vessel, the earthen vessel, the clay. Okay? A woman is an earthen vessel to be formed by her husband. And the word for potter is imagination. In a sense, you are creating your wife. She is a blank slate. She is a blank canvas, and it is your job to paint her. It is your job to make her like you, for her to become like you, to take on your essence and likeness in the same way that you take on the Father's essence and likeness through Christ. We're all brought into oneness through this process. But if you're not going to the Word and you don't know, if you're not going to the Word and you don't know the Father, you don't know Christ, you don't know how to hear, how are you ever going to become like Him? And in the same way, your wife, she needs your seed. Internally, spiritually, she needs your seed from the inside of the vessel. From the outside of the vessel, there's your instruction, correction, and reproof. In the two combined, you're making an earthen vessel. Semen is necessary. Semen is not just some fluid. There's a reason why your body produces so much semen for the rest of your life. Why is it that a man produces semen his whole life? His whole life, if you don't need it. Think about it. It's for the purpose of creating oneness in your marriage. She needs it. She needs it, and in fact, she should desire it. There's no problem in my marriage at all with that. I come home from work and I'm like, hey baby, meet me in the bedroom. You know, it's that simple. And she's eager. She's eager to put herself in that position. But men, we got to become strong. A woman can only desire a man and be with a man intimately that she respects. So you got to get the outward part. You have to become the man outwardly in order to give yourself to her inwardly. You have to outwardly do the right things. You have to be that guy. You got to be the guy that cannot be controlled, manipulated. You got to be the guy that doesn't tolerate disrespect. You got to be the guy that's teaching and instructing. You got to be the guy that's a rock, that you're not emotional when your wife is nuttier than a squirrel turd. You're holding the whole thing together. You've got to be that guy. You've got to be able to emotionally, that's the currency, is you've got to make her feel. And if you don't know how to make her feel, then you're going to have trouble giving her your seed. She's not going to want it or desire it. But I wanted to give you the tools. I wanted to give you understanding so you understand what all is at stake with your daughters, with your wife. Like, not only that, but where we came from. I don't know what your mom was like. You know, was your mom, did she ride the carousel before she got married? After she got married? I mean, cheating, all that? All this plays into genetics. And there's a reason why Scripture says that we are to guard our daughters' purity. One man. It's almost like God knew something, isn't it? It's kind of like He designed us, and He knew how He designed the human body, that woman was a pure vessel. She's like water. You put one thing in that water, and the water takes on the form of that thing. But you inject water, you know, it talks about the spring. Like, spring water, once contaminated with salt, it can never be spring water again. And if a woman, if she's the water and she's been infected by 50 different guys, it's diluting that water. It's becoming something that it was never meant to become. It's polluted. So I want you to think about this. I want you to meditate on this. Look in Scripture. Go look in Scripture why it's important for a woman to have a head. Her head covered. Because of the angels. What did the angels do? They enticed the women. The men have to be strong for the women. It starts with your daughters. And you can absolutely redeem a woman who has had a past